Alright, in section 12.4 here, we're going to look at simplifying rational expressions. This closely relates to the factoring and things that we've done previously in the semester. So hopefully some of these ideas, as we start talking about them, come back to the front part of your brain. And maybe not literally the front part, but you understand what I'm saying. And you guys are able to pick up on this pretty quickly. So a rational expression is an expression that can be written as a ratio of two polynomials where the denominator cannot equal 0. We already know that. You cannot, you take your calculator and try to divide something by 0, it's undefined. We already know that. Excluded value is a number that makes a rational expression undefined. In other words, when you're asked to identify excluded values, you're asking yourself, what makes the denominator 0? So for instance, in the first part, A, okay, it says just find the excluded values. That's all they're asking. Okay, so then what you say is, okay, what values does 3x equal 0? Divide both sides by 3. X equals 0 is your excluded value here. Okay. If I look at part B, same idea. Okay, excluded values, I'm just looking at the bottom. 2x minus 8 equals 0. Add your 8 to both sides, so 2x equals 8. Divide by 2. X equals 4. So 4 is an excluded value. You plug in 4 for x, you get 2 times 4, which is 8. 8 minus 8 is 0. You can't have 0 in the bottom of the fraction. We know that. Okay, same thing for these guys, okay? Find the excluded values. 4x squared minus 25 equals 0. Add your 25 to both sides. So you get 4x squared equals 25. Divide both sides by 4. So x squared equals 25 over 4. Take the square root of both sides. X equals plus or minus. Square root of 25 is 5. Square root of 4 is 2. Okay, so those two values will be your excluded values. Positive 2.5 and negative 2.5. Okay. For part D, again, now this is where we're starting to get into some old ideas. X squared minus x minus 20 equals 0. Quadratic formula or factor. We're going to review factoring. So two numbers that multiply to get negative 20, but add to get negative 1. Okay, it's x squared, so we know we have x and x. Okay, 5 and 4 are 1 unit apart, so we know that's what it's going to be. And since this guy is negative, that means the bigger number has to be the negative number. So x equals 5 or x equals negative 4 are your excluded values. So if you plug in 5 or negative 4 for x, the bottom would be 0, and that can't happen in a rational expression. Okay. Now we're simplifying, so we're looking to see if we can cancel things on top and on bottom. So if I look at this first expression, 3x over 2x, there's an x on top and an x on bottom. They can cancel, so you have 3 over 2 as your final simplifying. Okay, part B, if you look at the top, I can't simplify the top anymore, so I have 6x. But on bottom, I look at 6x and negative 12. I can factor a 6 out of both terms. So I pull a 6 out in front, I have x minus 2. And now you'll notice you have a 6 on top and a 6 on bottom. So this 6 and that 6 can cancel. And so when you simplify, you have x over x minus 2. Some of you might be saying, well, there's an x on top and an x on bottom. No, you can cancel them. You can only cancel if you're multiplying. Okay, right here I'm subtracting the x and the 2, so I cannot cancel that x out. Okay, you can only cancel if you're multiplying. So part C, I look at the top, I look at both terms, I see I can for sure bring out a 15. Okay, and I can also bring out an x squared. And so the first term I have 1 plus, the second term is going to be 2x over 10x to the third. And now I cancel what I can. 5 goes into 15 3 times. 5 goes into 10 twice. So I have 3 over 2. X squared can cancel with x cubed, or at least 2 of those. So I'm left with just an x on bottom. And then I have 1 plus 2x kind of hanging out there by itself. Okay, and so that would be the simplified version here of this expression. So you'll see what we're doing is we're breaking things down and then simply canceling out what we can. 4x minus 12 over 3x squared minus 9x. So on top I can pull out a 4. On bottom I can pull out a 3x. And so now what you'll notice here is I have x minus 3 on top, x minus 3 on bottom. I'm multiplying, so those two things can just cancel. And so you're left with 4 over 3x as your final simplified version. And again, I'm just kind of going to keep plugging away here, so pause the video as needed. rewatch parts, use this video to check your answers however you want to do it, okay? So I factor this top guy, so I have x and x, two numbers that multiply to get negative 6, add to get positive 1, so that's going to be 3 and 2. And since it's a positive 1, the 3's got to be the bigger of the two values. And on bottom I have, let's see, I have x and x. And I'm thinking of two numbers that multiply to get positive 12, add to get 7, 4 and 3. Some of you guys are thinking, well, how am I ever going to do that? For you guys, it'll take more thought. Okay, for me, I've been teaching math for a while. Obviously, I'm pretty good at it. That's why I became a math teacher. So I can see factors really quickly. You may not be as quick, but you should still be able to get there using some sort of a process. So now I look at the top and the bottom. I try to find common terms, x plus 3, x plus 3. And so I'm left with x minus 2 over x plus 4 as my simplified version of this expression. Again, I'm just going to keep plugging away here, okay? So I'll take specific questions in class tomorrow, but I'm just going to keep doing these so you guys can keep checking them. So on top here, I have 2x and x. All I'm doing is factoring, okay? So now remember, when I try to factor this, I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to get, now I got to get negative 14, okay? Because remember, you got to take the first term and the last term and multiply them. So two numbers that to multiply to get negative 14 and add to get negative 13. Okay, and I see that pretty quickly as negative 14 and positive 1. Okay, so I got a little bit ahead of myself here. Let's erase this. Sorry about that. And so if you remember, this is the way that we did it earlier. We said, okay, so we have 2x squared minus 14x plus 1x minus 7 divided by, now I'm going to do the same thing on bottom. 2 times 5 is 10. So I have two numbers that multiply, get positive 10, add to get 11. That's easy. That's 10 and 1. Okay, so I have 2x squared plus 10x plus 1x plus 5. And then remember, we factor by grouping. Right? So we look at these, look at these. All right, so on top, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the first two, I'm going to pull out a 2x. So I'm left with x minus 7. And on the second part, I can't pull anything out, so it's just x minus 7 over, first two guys I can pull out 2x. I have x plus 5, and the second term I can't pull anything out of x plus 5. I'm going to run out of room here. So now remember, what we can do here is we can take this 2x and the positive 1 out in front there, and we can combine those for 2x plus 1. And then the x minus 7 is common in both, so that's our next factor. And then again, I have 2x and positive 1 there, so I have 2x plus 1 over x plus 5. And again, you'll notice on top and on bottom I have a 2x plus 1. Those cancel. And so you have x minus 7 over x plus 5. Okay, and that's how we walk through that problem. Again, maybe not the easiest thing in the world, but nonetheless. All right, for part G, I have 5 parentheses x minus 3 over 3 minus x. Okay, and so when you look at this, you'll notice the x minus 3 and the 3 minus x are not the same thing. Okay, however, if you notice that and they're opposites of each other, then you can actually cancel these two things and get negative 1. Okay, so those two things are going to cancel to give you negative 1, and so your simplified version here is just going to be negative 5. That's it, all by itself. Alright, so again, if you're subtracting two things and they're flip-flopped on top and on bottom, they cancel to give you negative 1. Okay, if you're not sure why, you can just start plugging in values. Plug in 4 for x. On top you get 4 minus 3, which is 1. On bottom you get 3 minus 4, which is negative 1. Divide them, you get negative 1. Okay? Again, I know I'm going quickly, but I know this video has to be a certain length, so I'm just trying to make sure I get everything in here. So, factor the top. So two numbers that multiply to get 10, add to get 7, 5, 2. And on bottom, that's a difference of squares, so it's x plus 2, x minus 2. Alright, so x plus 2 on top and on bottom. Oops, sorry about that. So I get x plus 5 over x minus 2. Part I, factor the top. Two numbers that multiply get 16, add to get negative 8, negative 4, and negative 4. And two numbers that multiply to get negative 24, but add to get positive 2. Pretty sure that's going to be, let's see here, 6 and 4, right? 6 and 4. And then since it's a positive 2, the bigger one's got to be the positive. X minus 4 cancel. So you have x minus 4, over x plus 6. Those parentheses aren't really necessary on top. You can put them there if you want. It's not wrong if you put them, but you don't have to have them. Okay, and then I believe this is the last example. So factor the top. So out of the top, I'm going to pull out 2x, so I'm left with x plus 5. And on bottom, again, there's no common factor in all of those, so what I got to do is I got to take 5 and 4, so I get 20 over, and then, so I need two numbers that multiply to get 20, add to get 21, okay? So multiply to get 20, add to get 21, so there's only two ways, there's only one way to do that, 20 and 1, right? So I have 4x squared plus 20x plus x plus 5, group, and so I end up, let's see here, on top nothing changes, 2x and x plus 5. On bottom I can factor a 4x out, so I have x plus 5, and then plus, I can't factor anything out of the x plus 5 over here, so I leave it. So I have 2x, x plus 5 on top. On bottom, I take this 4x, I take the 1 out in front here, so I have 4x plus 1, and x plus 5 is my two factors, x plus 5, and so my final simplified version here is 2x over 4x plus 1. Okay, we are going to take 2 days on this section just because I know that there's a lot of things involved here, a lot of review material that I'm sure we're going to have to go over again in class. So just have questions ready, and we can review some factoring techniques, things of that nature, first thing in class, and we'll go from there.